A small group of Democratic governors came to the White House for a secretive meeting with President Biden. Nobody knew exactly who would be there and what they'd talk about, but reporters guessed that it would be Biden's re-election campaign. And sure enough, we now know what the conclusion of that meeting was, because a couple of those governors came out and spoke to the press afterwards. And what they said has a lot of people talking and will have a huge impact on the presidential election. I've got the clips from those governors speaking to the press. I'll show it to you and tell you all about the story coming right up. After a disappointing debate performance versus Donald Trump last week, President Biden has spent the last few days providing a better explanation about what went wrong. He's talked about some mistakes he's made, like traveling to Europe twice and all the way to Los Angeles and back in the weeks before the debate. Obviously, that had a negative impact on his health because the poor guy looked exhausted and his voice was hoarse by the time the debate started. But he's also admitted that he made some mistakes, something that Donald Trump would never do. In fact, he had a radio interview recently and said the following.
I had a bad night. And the fact of the matter is that, I screwed up. I made a mistake. That's 90 minutes on stage. Look at what I've done in 3.5 years.
I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate President Biden just flat out saying, I screwed up. That is a character trait that not everybody has, especially the person who's president of the United States of America, the most powerful position in the world. That brings us to the secretive meeting that took place between President Biden and top Democratic governors. President Biden knows that he only has a few days to reassure Democratic Party leaders and the general public that he's up to the task and still the best fit to be the Democratic Party's nominee in the November election. And a lot of people respect these up-and-coming stars in the Democratic Party. So it's super important what they have to say about the situation. And we now know the results of that meeting because a couple of the governors came out and spoke to the press in front of the White House. First up was Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz.
We've served when Donald Trump was president, and the threats to our nation were real. And so those concerns are real to us. And what we understand was a Trump presidency was chaos, destruction. A Biden presidency was dealing with COVID, using the science, investing in infrastructure, and working to the middle class. And all of us are trying to figure out and just want to make sure as governors, we're on the front line of many of these things. We're in states, whether they're swing states or not, where folks care and are giving us feedback. And the feedback was, we are all looking for the path to win. All the governors agree with that. President Biden agrees with that. He has had our backs through COVID, through all of the recovery, all of the things that have happened. The governors have his back, and we're working together just to make very, very clear on that. A path to victory in November is the #1 priority, and that's the #1 priority of the president. So that's what we're trying to get done. The feedback was good. The conversation was honest and open, and the actions that will come out of that will make sure that we're getting that message out.
Well, it sounds like Governor Walz is quite confident in Biden's ability to win the election in November. So whatever Biden told him in that room seemed to resonate. Next up, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. Listen to what he had to say.
It was a great conversation with the president and the vice president because it was honest. It was candid. I think that, we always believe that when you love someone, you tell them the truth. And I think we came in and we were honest about the feedback that we were getting. We were honest about the concerns that we were hearing from people. And we were also honest about the fact that as the president continued to tell us and show us that he was all in, that we said that we would stand with him. Because as Governor Walz said, the president has always had our backs. We're going to have his back as well. Because the results that we've been able to see under this administration have been undeniable in all of our individual states. But the thing that makes us most optimistic and most hopeful is not necessarily that we're afraid of an alternative, but also is that we're hopeful for the future. And so we know we have work to do. We know that as we're standing right here, we're behind. But we also know that that path to be able to make sure that we can pull ahead in November is real, and it's going to take all of us in order to make it happen and to make it work. And we're grateful to hear the level of excitement and the focus that the president and the vice president have about being victorious in November.
Now that sounded like a real sign of confidence from Governor Moore, and I don't think he would do that if he didn't genuinely believe that Joe Biden could win in November. Finally, we heard from New York's Governor Kathy Hochul.
I'm here to tell you today, President Joe Biden is in it to win it. And all of us said we pledged our support to him because the stakes could not be higher. On the eve of the 4th of July celebration, We talk about how we transition under a monarchy and a tyranny that our founding fathers fought against, that we risk right now descending back into that very same place. We will stand with the president as we fight that force being Donald Trump. And together, we'll make sure that Americans know not just what Joe Biden did for all of us, and the list of what he did for my state of New York is extraordinarily long, but where he's going for the future and where he's going to take this country. We feel very confident in his abilities. We talked about the plan and how he's going to be very focused on issues that matter to Americans, and I felt very confident coming out of this meeting as well.
The governors also took some questions from the press, and they did not shy away from difficult questions.
Do you think he's fit for office?
Yes, fit for office. The president has 3.5 years of delivering for us, going through what we've all been through. None of us are denying. Thursday night was a bad performance. It was a bad hit, if you will, on that. But it doesn't impact what I believe he's delivering.
I appreciate the honesty from Governor Walz. There's no reason to beat around the bush. We can admit that President Biden had a poor performance in last week's debate, but it shouldn't define his entire presidency and what he's capable of doing in the future. And lastly, I have to show you guys this answer by Governor Moore in response to one of the questions from the press.
What would you say to people in your own party who say the game is up, enough's enough?
No, I would say this. In November, we've got a clear choice. The president was very clear that he is in this to win this. And the president is our nominee. The president is our party leader. And the president has told us, and he was very clear back there, that he is in this to win this. And so for people, I would say, and listen, we're governors. We don't do hand-wringing. That's not what we do. Governors work and get things done. Governors say, tell me the objective, and we're going to make sure that we accomplish the objective. And so for people who are concerned, I just want to be very clear on something. And come November, we've got a binary choice. And the binary choice is between someone who has continually delivered for us and our states and the people of our states, and frankly, someone whose vision for the future of this country is downright dangerous. And so I would tell people it is time to mount up. And it is time to get serious and understand what's at stake.
Governor Moore brings up a great point. I think Biden is tied or even behind Trump in some of the polls because people are not looking at this as a choice between President Biden and Donald Trump. They still think that there's some other option. But as we get closer to the election, people will realize that there's only two choices, and President Biden will be the obvious pick for so many of these people. And some governors weren't able to make the meeting in person, but they still attended virtually and wanted to show their support. Governor Gavin Newsom of California said, "I heard 3 words from the president tonight. He's all in, and so am I. Joe Biden's had our back. Now it's time to have his." These Democratic governors are leaders in their own right. And so for them to come to the White House and have this meeting with President Biden and walk away reassured that he is, yes, up to the task and the best person to be on the ticket for the Democratic Party to defeat Donald Trump in November, that is a great sign, and I am thrilled to see them come out with that full-throated support. And it sounds like President Biden is going to do a bunch of public events that are unscripted to prove to the American people that he is capable of serving for another 4 years. So I'm excited to see this new reinvigorated Biden campaign. Whatever he told these Democratic governors, he's about to show the rest of us. So I am positive and optimistic that Biden can win in November. I never doubted it for a second. Let's keep fighting. Just stay optimistic, folks. We got this.